Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today. And week 5 of the NFL season has just wrapped up. And, of course, we're here to talk about it all. We'll go ahead and get into Justin Jefferson going on the IR and what that means for the Minnesota Vikings in their future. We'll go ahead and then talk about a little bit about the Green Bay Packers and how Jordan Love has been playing these last couple of weeks. We'll talk about Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers hot start and how much credit he deserves for that hot start. We'll talk a little bit about Bill Belichick and the Patriots last couple of weeks as well. A little bit about the Baltimore Ravens wide receivers this past week. And we'll have a little bit of some power rankings for the top 10 teams in the NFL. And, of course, as always, we'll go ahead and close out with our week 6 pick and predictions. But with that being said, temperature check. How's everybody doing today?
Man, another week of the NFL season. You know, things kind of started off bright and they've kind of dulled a bit. But I don't think they're as bad as the guy over there on my left side. So, I'm pretty happy about where I am compared to him. But, things can always get better. It's the NFL.
I want to say very happy. Like, you guys are one game apart.
Jordan Love but he just
I don't know
lost
why this guy's happy, bro.
He just lost his wide receiver 1 to the IR. His team is 1-4, 1-5.
Game. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be as happy.
Your quarterback leads the interceptions, by the way.
Just as this team
it's growing pains. Stuff happens.
I enjoyed my week, though. You know what I'm saying? My guys, we was on the couch relaxing. My week, smoothies, walks, hikes. We were relaxing. You feel me? Now we back this week. Big week, 3-1. Feeling comfortable, feeling good. Positive record over here. I don't know about y'all too, though. I don't know if y'all can speak like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, we fought against Kansas City, man, but that's why they're the champs for a reason. And with Justin Jefferson going on IR, that's pretty much the nail in the coffin. Our fate has been decided. We'll be tanking for the future, trying to get a franchise quarterback. But overall, though, it was a good week of football. A lot that we have to get into, and let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Speaking of my Minnesota Vikings. Of course, as we talked about a little bit right now, Justin Jefferson suffered a hamstring injury. I believe midway through the second half, I want to say, was unable to return to the game in the fourth quarter against Kansas City, and we ended up losing that game 27-20. Questionable way for us to lose. A lot of things that we can get into, but maybe I might speak my piece on it. But with Justin Jefferson going on the IR, is it time for the Vikings to consider just tanking for the rest of the season and kind of moving on from Kirk Cousins, trying to see what they can get from him before the trade deadline, or just letting him go in the offseason? What do you think the Vikings, what steps do you think the Vikings should take right now with Justin Jefferson being out for 4 weeks?
I think this did kind of put the nail in the coffin for the season for the Vikings. I mean, you lose your wide receiver 1, and I think at that point, it should point the Vikings to a direction where they need to consider rebuilding. I mean, Kirk Cousins is far, far from the problem in Minnesota. And I think everybody should kind of identify that Kirk Cousins isn't the issue here. I think he relatively keeps the Vikings competitive in these games. You've seen it against the Chiefs. You've seen it against the Eagles. I mean, he had a flawless game against the Eagles. And I don't think he's the particular problem here. But I think, if you're going to move into the direction of rebuilding, I think at this point you kind of have to maximize his value and start thinking about teams where you would send him to. And one team that's kind of been sitting on my mind, I know everybody has been talking about maybe the Jets, and maybe a couple other teams, but a team that's just been kind of sitting at the back of my head has just been the Atlanta Falcons. I think that would probably be one of the best destinations to send a guy like Kirk Cousins in terms of environment and stability and what they have. Now, would Kirk Cousins waive his no-trade clause? That's a whole nother discussion in of itself. I think the guy absolutely loves Minnesota. He's spoken about how much his family loves it. And I don't know if he's willing to kind of part ways with the team in that type of manner. But a team like the Atlanta Falcons, I think they could absolutely benefit from a guy like Kirk Cousins, because I still don't believe in Desmond Ridder as a quarterback. And I think a guy like Kirk Cousins, paired with, he kind of reminds me a bit of what Ryan Tannehill kind of did in 2020 in terms of the efficiency. And I think he can be a better version of that with guys like Kyle Pitts and Drake London and Bijan Robinson there, and that offensive line, which has been a little bit inconsistent to start this year. But I think they got a bunch of guys on that roster that would need a quarterback like him. And so Atlanta Falcons has just been on top of my mind. I don't believe the Jets should do that because you kind of already gave up draft capital, get Aaron Rodgers. At this point, you might as well wait out the year. People have suggested the Commanders, but I think they kind of like the idea of Sam Howell and what he got going on for them. So really, just been the Atlanta Falcons that I've thought about a lot. I think they would should be a contender to go out and get a guy like Kirk Cousins. And for the Vikings, I think this should be the start of the rebuild. You have your franchise wide receiver. You have a great young piece in Jordan Addison. You have TJ Hawkinson, who you already signed. I think at that point, it's time to move forward. You've had this Kirk Cousins era. You've had your moments, but at this point, maximize his value. He's been a solid quarterback, almost a top 10 type of guy for this franchise, but it's time to move on.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk, on the last year of his contract, he has a no trade clause in his contract as well. I mean, the Viking season, I feel like, losing JJ offensively, I really don't blame Kirk or JJ like that, but they're 1-4 sitting right now, missing one of the best players in the league on their team. I think it is time to, call it wraps. I don't know how much they could get for Kirk Cousins, a guy that's on his last year of his deal and that's holding a no trade clause. And he loves Minnesota, like he said. We've seen it multiple times. And his family loves it there. His kids love it there. He loves it there. He might want to just end up just playing the year out and then, just weigh his options in free agency. But for me, the rebuild, I feel like, guys like Harrison Smith and Danielle Hunter, they can get some value for that, if they trade them and, start the rebuild off. I feel like Danielle Hunter is a big piece. A lot of teams will run him, a lot of key teams, a lot of playoff teams will, give up some value, some, picks for him. And same as Harrison Smith, he's a fantastic safety. But for me, Kirk Cousins, I don't think he's going to get as much trade value as in the market as a lot of these other guys on the team that can, especially on the defensive side of the ball with those two stars. I feel like it is time to rebuild, but I feel like Kirk Cousins is going to be here. He's going to finish out the season. I don't think they bring back JJ the next 5 to 6 weeks. The schedule's kind of looking tough. They got some tough matchups on the road, but who knows what will happen. But I do believe the Vikings need to rebuild and kickstart the franchise off again. They do got some young key pieces in Addison, Hawkinson, and JJ. So you get that number 1 pick. Caleb Williams, comes in. Trade Danielle Hunter, trade Harrison Smith, get some more picks in that first round, or stack up in the second and third round and just have at least 10 to 12 picks in the draft and rebuild through that. So we'll see what happens, but tough first 5 games for the Vikings.
I mean, I already knew our fate 2 weeks ago when we lost to the Chargers. So this is kind of nothing really new to me at this point. I just feel like I'm kind of repeating myself. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? We win a game in Carolina. We play Kansas City. The game goes how it goes. But the worst thing that could have possibly happened to come out of that game was just Justin Jefferson, out of all the players that we have getting injured. And then, Kirk Cousins, I don't think there's any sort of like sweepstakes or any sort of, trade move coming our way for Kirk Cousins. I think Kirk Cousins is going to finish out the rest of his season as a Minnesota Viking. And then whatever option is left on the table for him in free agency is something that he's going to have to consider. But there's just no return for him in Minnesota. Obviously we signed him about 4 or 5 years ago, fully guaranteed 3-year, $90 million deal coming out of Washington. And, we thought he was going to be our guy. We were just coming off an NFC championship berth with Case Keenum. We thought if we had Kirk Cousins into the mix, that he was going to be that guy that takes us over the top. And unfortunately, it's been just a love-hate relationship with a guy like Kirk Cousins. And, we all know this is going to be the last year. There's no hate towards Kirk Cousins at all. He's been balling out for us, and it's just been a lot of other counterparts that haven't been stepping up. But for my guy Justin Jefferson to kind of finish out his season in only 5 weeks, it's just something that sucks, man. Because I can't see him coming back in any sort of capacity whatsoever. There's just no point. In 4 weeks from now, we're probably going to have a record of 2-7 when he's eligible to come off IR. Why would the Minnesota Vikings even consider to bring back Justin Jefferson? And why would Justin Jefferson himself, knowing that he needs to get his contract in this upcoming offseason, want to come back and compete and play for absolutely nothing? At that point, our fate is already decided. We're going to be a lottery team. We're going to be competing for the number 1 overall pick. If I'm Justin Jefferson, everybody knows how valuable he is. Everybody knows how much he's worth. And, he just has to sit back and rehab his hamstring injury that's going on. I heard it was a grade 2, not the worst that could happen. But at the end of the day, I don't see Justin Jefferson coming back whatsoever this season. And, it sucks because obviously you always want to see the best players play each and every Sunday, regardless of whether or not you root for that specific team. But um, yeah, but that was just the worst thing that could possibly happen, coming out of that Kansas City Chiefs game. Because now moving forward, I'm going to have to watch the rest of the Minnesota Vikings games, for the rest of the season without Justin Jefferson out there on the field. And I honestly don't know what a Minnesota Vikings team looks like without a true wide receiver one. It's been a while. We had Stephon Diggs. Once we moved off Diggs, we ended up, having Justin Jefferson. And what does our team look like offensively? Now, Jordan Addison is a guy that I see that will step up heavily, in Justin Jefferson's absence. TJ Hawkinson, a guy we gave all of that money to at the beginning of the season, has had so far an underwhelming start to this season as well. And so I feel like he's one guy that has to step up big to contribute, to kind of show, the team that, hey, I wanted this amount of money. You guys gave it to me. I'm gonna show you guys what I was worth, what I got paid. And so, it's gonna be tough for my team to continue to play throughout the rest of the season without JJ. But when I look at the future and I look at the quarterback market, I don't get too excited about the quarterback market. I get excited about the upcoming draft class, with guys like Caleb Williams, Drake May, and, Michael Penix. And so, obviously everybody in the world is going to be tanking for a guy like Caleb Williams. And I'm just kind of happy that, the year that we're not the best team, we're not one of the best teams contending for a playoff spot and whatsoever, being the best team in the division, we're going to have an opportunity to get, a generational quarterback. I feel like a lot of teams in the league have had an opportunity, to draft their franchise guy, or have an opportunity to draft a quarterback, that they thought was their franchise guy. We just haven't had that opportunity yet in a while, probably going back to Teddy Bridgewater days. And, obviously that didn't end up working out for us. So, I think it's our turn now for us to go ahead and grab a generational quarterback, to pair him up with a guy like Justin Jefferson. And I'm hoping we end up winning the sweepstakes for Caleb Williams. But even if we don't, even if we're a couple of spots back, from that number one pick, I feel like, the Minnesota Vikings are going to try to, use enough draft capital to try to move up to number one to get that quarterback. Because I feel like, in previous drafts, you always talked about trying to get a quarterback, try to move up in the draft to get the guy that we want. But unfortunately, we just don't, make that move. But I feel like now, more than ever is probably the time for us to go out and make that move like every other team, like the Carolina Panthers did with the Chicago Bears last year, with how the Niners traded 3 first-round picks to go ahead and get, their guy in Trey Lance. Unfortunately, it didn't work out there, but that was the guy that they had in mind. That's the guy they wanted, and they had to give up a lot to go get him. And I can only imagine what the price tag is going to be for a guy like Caleb Williams. But I'm hoping my franchise is willing to pay that price, because if we get a guy like him and pair him up with a guy like Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawkinson, it's a good start to the future. So, Kirk Cousins, he'll finish out however many games he plays, in a Minnesota Vikings uniform. Of course, we're very grateful for him and his time with us. But obviously, as we all know, it'll be coming to an end real soon. But hopefully, I still have hope the New York Jets probably make a move for him. As a Garrett Wilson fantasy owner, I feel like I really need it at this point. I don't know how much longer I can deal with Zach Wilson, only giving freaking Garrett Wilson 3-4 targets a game. But staying on the topic of the NFC North, let's go ahead and move on to the Green Bay Packers, a team that 3 weeks ago I was very, very surprised about with how they were playing. But now they finally come back down to earth. I feel like this is who they really are, And so the Green Bay Packers are coming off a loss on Monday night to the Las Vegas Raiders. I believe the score to that game was 13-17. Jordan Love, 3 interceptions against that Las Vegas Raiders defense. He now leads the league in interceptions, I believe, at 6. I want to say, not looking too good for your franchise quarterback, Habib. So, my question to you guys is: should we be out on Jordan Love as a long-term answer for the Green Bay Packers?
I think there's kind of a nuanced approach to understanding Jordan Love. I think on one hand, he shouldn't be treated like a rookie quarterback. I think that's for sure. I'll establish that. I don't think he should be treated like a rookie quarterback just because, he has been sitting behind Aaron Rodgers for 3+ years. He sat behind Aaron Rodgers. He's worked with a quarterback coach, Tom Clements, who also worked with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. He's sat behind this Matt LaFleur offense, so he understands the concept of this offense. He's been in this position where he can absorb knowledge. He can understand what's going on. He's worked on his mechanics. He's worked on his footwork. He's been in the system, And on the other hand, you have a team that's the second youngest in the entire NFL. The offensive line has been banged up. The Matt LaFleur play calling has not been great at all. We've missed our most explosive player in terms of his big play ability, and Aaron Jones and Christian Watson has been, kind of getting back into rhythm. We have literally first year and second year wide receivers. And then so there's a mixed bag there between, the outside, the environment that Jordan Love is currently in and his play in of itself. I think Jordan Love's accuracy has been my biggest issue this season. The turnovers are one thing, but the inaccuracy has just been a huge, huge issue. I think for a quarterback to be in his fourth year and he still struggles with these accuracy issues, it's kind of I want to say a red flag, just because, it's your fourth year. Some of these outbreaking routes, these intermediate throws, he should have been able to hit. And the first 2 weeks of the season, Jordan Love, in terms of his EPA per drop back, and that's just basically measuring how successful a quarterback is in terms of leading his team towards generating points, getting first downs, getting touchdowns, getting yardage. He was one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL in that category, and I think his passer rating and other stats that he was playing well in. The one that was kind of eye popping was his completion percentage, which was pretty low. And it was a combination of his inaccurate throws and the wide receiver drops. And what I'm understanding Jordan Love, I think it would be too early for me to dismiss him and say that this guy can absolutely not be our franchise quarterback. But on the same side, I think it would be very, very hasty for me to go back and say, yeah, this is our franchise quarterback. Because when you've seen these last 2 weeks, I think they've been quite alarming at the very least to say. Some of these throws, the decision making, the accuracy, I think has been a big problem. That throw where he threw his first interception, I think that was one of the worst throws I think I've seen. That's Lydia J. Cutler throw. That was a damn right awful throw. It's like Lydia Dak Prescott turnover. It's Lydia Dak Prescott interception. Lydia side by side, same thing as what a Dak Prescott would throw. And so I think it would be too early in the season to dismiss Jordan Love and say he cannot be a franchise quarterback. Because, if you go back to that first season Aaron Rodgers started, he had 9 interceptions and he had 9 touchdowns and 4 interceptions through his first, I believe, 5 games. But at the same time, you got to understand Aaron Rodgers was playing with a lot of great wide receivers at the time. I think Jennings was there. Donald Driver was there. I think rookie season, Jordy Nelson was there. He had a competent amount of veterans in that roster compared to what Jordan Love has right now. So I think it's a much balanced take would be more so giving him this season to prove himself as a franchise quarterback versus saying 5 games in, this guy can absolutely not be our franchise quarterback. But at the same time, if someone says, I don't think there's been signs enough there to say he's a franchise quarterback, I don't have problems with that. But it's too early in the season for me to dismiss him as such.
Yeah, I believe so as well. I think it's too early to write him off right now, especially just after a five game, low window. And with the injuries that he's having on the offense, Aaron Jones not playing a couple games, Christian Watson not playing a couple games, Bakhtari, done for the year with a knee injury. He hasn't really been, with the solid lineup, a full healthy offensive lineup for him to thrive and to succeed. There's certain stuff that on the way that he has to work on, the interceptions, the turnovers. I feel like his progression sometimes is pretty slow. He sees the player.
He overthinks it. That's a problem.
He overthinks it. Like the players, it's there, it's open, but that split second, that overthinking right there, that's where the mistake comes from. And the deep ball, I feel like he got to work on that. Too. I feel like Christian Watson being that wide open and him not having the power to throw the ball there, and that don't work. We've seen Aaron Rodgers do that off his back foot with his left hand throwing it. Like you got to show up with that type of power. It's a game-winning touchdown right there. And for him to throw a pick in that last possession, it kills the vibe. It could have been all fixed. Those 2 turnovers could have been flushed down, and if you made that pass to Watson, it could have been a different story. But yeah, I feel like right now it's too early to say that he's not the franchise quarterback for the Packers, and obviously there's still some stuff that he needs to work on. But I feel like once the team gets fully healthy, Aaron Jones comes back on as 100%, and he's fully incorporated back into the offense. I think they might be able to be able to do something. But give him some time. I feel like that we need to do that for him. In 5 games is too little to write off a quarterback. Way too little to write off a quarterback. So that's all I gotta say.
Why are we giving him an excuse? This is his 3rd year in the league, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but it's like,
does it count like if you hold the bench for 32 games and
if you're sitting and learning behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers,
at the same
then
time,
I mean that makes sense. A lot of rookie quarterbacks would be sitting and
you
learning
can
behind Aaron Rodgers.
you can pick up a book and study 24/7, but having the real on life experience on the field is much different.
That is
You
true.
can you can be sitting down for 3 years, but if you're not having that game experience to put that studying into the game and not being available every single time to practice that, it's not there. If you're sitting there 3 years, you're soaking in knowledge, soaking in knowledge, soaking in knowledge, you might get in your head and be like, I got too much stuff in my head right now, without the game experience. And that's for him. I feel like that's the case for him. Just too much sitting, and now he, just overthinking a lot of stuff. But you got to give it the whole season to Jordan.
Plus, the way his
I mean-
deal structured as well, it's like we give him a deal where it's basically essentially based on 1 year. So it's not like we inked in this guy as our franchise quarterback. I think this season is really the litmus test for him because they understand it's literally his 4th year in the NFL, first year starting. So they're taking it. The Packers are taking it as this is going to be his first season starting. But he's also his 4th year in the league. So if he's unable to prove himself, we can easily just get out of this. It's not a big issue to us. I think that's how the franchise views it.
I mean, the thing is, I just hear a lot of excuses for a guy that was getting all the love in the world the first 3 weeks of the season when you guys started off 2-1, and now you sit here with a record, back-to-back losses, getting embarrassed on Thursday night at home against a division rival in the Detroit Lions, and then you come back on Monday night and make the Las Vegas Raiders defense look like the San Francisco 49ers defense. I think it's fair to say, that a lot of people should be out. Now, am I going to sit here and say that I'm out on Jordan Love as a solution, as a fix for the franchise of the Green Bay Packers? Absolutely not. I think that answer will be a lot more clear at the end of the season. But a lot of these excuses just don't sit right with me. Offensive line issues. That's David Bakhtiari. At this point, we have to treat him in the same light as we treated Michael Thomas whenever he got injured. Like, this guy's just at this point, he's probably never going to come back to the NFL because he's just never going to be healthy enough to be out there on the field, which is fine. He's had a long career as a Green Bay Packer, but all of these skilled position weapons, like Christian Watson coming back against the Detroit Lions, and that's fine. We gave that. We gave, obviously he was on a snap count that game. Aaron Jones coming back that game on a snap count and not playing in this past game. A little bit iffy, a little bit. That's bad management on the Green Bay Packers part. What was the whole point of playing him on the snap count and then having him on a short? It was a long week from Thursday all the way until the following Monday, and then him being inactive. And even with them missing Aaron Jones this past week against the Raiders, AJ Dillon didn't look too bad. I believe.
Yeah, I'll give him credit for that. AJ Dillon, I think he looked solid.
He didn't look too bad. So in hindsight, obviously this was just a very, very bad game for a guy like Jordan Love, man. And I feel like, the way you treat a guy like Justin Fields is you're just not treating your quarterback the same way, man. The first couple of weeks, you're bashing a guy like Justin Fields.
Justin Fields has been starting for 3 years, man. Like, let's come on now. Justin Fields has been starting
on the
for 3
worst
years.
team in the league, on one of the worst teams in the league.
But Justin Fields' issue has been turnovers and being able to read the field for 3 years now. It's been a consistent criticism against him for 3 years now. And now people, what's funny is now people are giving him credit these last 2 weeks for going up against maybe the 2 worst secondaries in the entire NFL. The Commanders, who have been absolutely torched these last 3 weeks, and then the Broncos. We don't even need to speak about the Broncos. So, if anything, I was just gonna say Justin Fields, maybe he's turning it around. I'm not too sure because he's just gone up against the 2 worst secondaries. Jordan Love has a chance now after his bye that we come out and we play against the Broncos. So maybe that's his chance. This bye week, we reset. He goes up against the Broncos, and if moving forward, I think if we lose against the Broncos and Jordan Love has a bad game, I think that's where things are starting. The tide really turns against him. I think that's where a lot of us, especially as Packer fans, that's where we start to really dig in on him. I've already had criticism against him for these accuracy issues, but now if he has a bad game against the worst defense in the NFL, then I can't lie. It's going to be tough for me to defend him after that point.
So let's say, hypothetically speaking, Jordan Love isn't the quarterback at the end of the season for the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, you guys end up not making the playoffs, not making a wild card spot, probably finish second in the division. What steps are the Green Bay Packers going to take? What's the plan next? Do you guys just go back into the draft and draft another quarterback and just move off from Jordan Love?
The issue being is that I don't know if we're going to be terrible enough to like sit here like I don't know if we're gonna be like the Panthers level of bad, or like maybe you guys when you trade Kirk Cousins level bad, or like any of these teams that are like one in something right now. Because like I don't want to be the worst position you can be in is one where you don't have a clear identity. I think the idea is that we're a young roster, we want to rebuild, but if Jordan Love isn't the guy, then I don't know what our solution is at quarterback because by then if we have like 6 wins, then what was it for? Unless we decide to trade up, and I don't know if this franchise is willing to really trade up for a quarterback. So that's kind of like my issue with this thing is, we have to figure it fast if Jordan Love is that guy or not. Because if he's not able to prove that, then things have to start. We have to plan for that essentially.
You don't feel like in the slightest way it's not fair towards him,
With
for
Jordan Love,
you guys, yeah, towards Jordan Love for you guys to just kind of have him have a 1 year test run, and
yeah, but it's like the
if it
point you
doesn't
brought
work,
up
then it
though.
doesn't work.
It's kind of the point you brought up though. It's like he's been in the league for 4 years now, so it's like a fair take to just say like, you've wanted this opportunity for this long, and now you're thrusted into it. Like you have to at least it's either sink or swim essentially for him. And so nobody's sitting here saying, Jordan Love has to have an Aaron Rodgers type of year, but you have to show the franchise like, hey, like I can be that guy for you guys. If he's unable to do that, then I'm sorry, we have to kick him to the curb. It's just how football works.
It's the harsh reality of the NFL, man. Business is business. They'll draft a guy, they'll build them up just to tear him back down. So, but it is alarming. These turnovers. I do want to highlight though. For him to be leading the league in interceptions through the first 5 weeks isn't really something I kind of expected, especially with the way that he played throughout the first 3 weeks of the season. But it's a long season. There's a lot of opportunity for him to turn it around, for the Green Bay Packers to turn it around. Obviously it helps. You guys play the Denver Broncos coming out of a bye week. A lot of guys should be coming back healthy. Hopefully Aaron Jones comes back healthy, and then maybe we'll have a clearer picture on how we can assess Jordan Love's tenure, so far as a Green Bay Packer. But aside from all that, let's go ahead and move on to probably the most interesting discussion that we'll have tonight, and that's the San Francisco 49ers, who haven't lost a regular season game in quite some time. These guys right now sit with a record of 5-0, arguably one of the best teams in the league, led by the last pick in the NFL draft 3-4 years ago, the year they drafted Trey Lance, and that's Brock Purdy. These guys haven't missed a beat. Obviously, after losing Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game last year, Kyle Shanahan said that this guy had to melt in training camp for him to lose his spot, which is why they moved off from Trey Lance, sent him to Dallas, and named Brock Purdy the starter for the foreseeable future. So with that being said, though, how much credit should Brock Purdy be getting for this San Francisco 49ers hot start?
I think he should get a good amount of credit for how he's played. Like I think Brock Purdy, like there should be a balanced take to how this thing is understood. I think Brock Purdy is playing good, and anybody who says he's not is lying. I think he's been playing good. When it comes to his decision making in the pocket, I think he's been able to find guys consistently when they've gotten open. He's been able to make smart decisions with the football. I don't think he's thrown in a turnover at the interception yet on the season. He's been clean when he's played. At the same time, Brock Purdy's in a system that completely maximizes a quarterback. On top of the fact that their pass catchers are all elite separators. These guys are consistently going to get open. In the middle of the field, Brock Purdy just has to find these guys. And that's what being in this Kyle Shanahan system kind of requires you to be. You have to be preordained with your reads. You have to throw it with anticipation. You got to throw it with accuracy. You got to throw it on time. And Brock Purdy has done that. And he deserves credit for that. But at the same time, he's not doing anything where people are going to be sitting here and saying, wow, I'm watching a guy like Patrick Mahomes. I'm watching a guy like Justin Herbert. I'm watching a guy like Josh Allen. I'm watching a guy like Trevor Lawrence would make these type of throws. I think Brock Purdy has done his job excellently, and no one should hold that against him in terms of doing his job. But I don't think he deserves an absolute credit for how the Niners have been playing. I mean, at the same time, these guys have an absolute dominant defense. I mean, just look Nick Bosa. I mean, they have a bunch of Fred Warner, a bunch of guys on this defense that absolutely ball now. They have a bunch of elite pass catchers. They have one of the best coaches in the entire NFL. I think Brock Purdy's been thrusted and he's been maximized in this system. But at the same time, it's hard for me to sit here and say, well, he deserves, 80% of the credit. I think he deserves a solid amount of the credit, but not enough for me to sit here and say, well, he deserves to be in the conversation with these other guys that are leading their teams. And they're not in systems that maximize them as much as a Kyle Shanahan system can.
I mean, Purdy, he's playing phenomenal in this system. I feel like, do I think he's an MVP candidate? Do I think that he belongs in the conversation with the elite quarterbacks of the elite quarterbacks? No. But what he's doing on this team is perfectly fit for what Kyle Shanahan needs. A guy that doesn't turn the ball over, a guy that, plays in the pocket, a guy that he reads his progressions, he doesn't make mistakes. That's what this offense needs. They have a lot of playmakers on this team. They got McCaffrey, you got Debo, you got Kittle, you got Ayuk. This guy's getting them the ball. He's getting the ball downfield. He's getting the ball everywhere, and it's kind of different than Jimmy G. We always said Jimmy G was the system quarterback, and Kyle Shanahan does come with a system, but Purdy, I feel like Purdy does have his feet outside of the system. He can make plays outside of the pocket. He can do stuff that all these other quarterbacks that were in Kyle Shanahan's system couldn't do. So for me, I mean, he does deserve a lot of credit, but do I think he's the biggest piece on this team that's driving them? No. I feel like there's a lot of other key pieces on this team that matters a lot. But like McCaffrey should be up there in the MVP race, and I mean, it doesn't take a lot away from Purdy. I feel like they do have a great chance to win the Super Bowl. I do expect him probably do get paid from the Niners because he's being as successful as he is. I think he's sitting right now with 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And if he keeps on playing this way, his stats are going to be phenomenal to end the season. I mean, he deserves to get paid.
I think he might be on more touchdowns than that. Let me see.
Last I checked was 9. I'm not too sure.
I know you're right.
Yards
I forgot he had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. So he's playing phenomenal. You can't take a lot away from Mr. Irrelevant. People say, hey, he's the last pick in the draft. You put him in a system, it's obviously going to fit. But how would you know the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, was going to fit in this type of high-powered offense? Who could have thought a guy like this could have walked in, and we've seen the quarterbacks the Niners had in the past, and Kyle Shanahan that has had in the past hasn't fit in his system, and we got Mr. Irrelevant doing that. So you got to tip your hat off to him. A lot of people are going to take a lot of the stuff away, say, hey, the Niners have this, the Niners have that, the Niners do this, they have this amount of players on their team, they have this amount of superstar players on this team. Can't take this away from Purdy. I feel like he's done a lot for them, and he's going to keep on doing more for them. So.
I think your guys' answers aren't necessarily fair for a guy like Brock Purdy, man. Those answers don't necessarily sit right with me. I think Brock Purdy does deserve a lot of credit, for this start for the 49ers. Obviously you could talk about Christian McCaffrey and his touchdown streak so far, going on 14 games now in a row. You could talk about their elite defense that's always been elite for many, many years. But we always highlight this system. We always highlight the Kyle Shanahan system and plug and play quarterback. We've talked about it for years now. It doesn't necessarily matter who's under center. Kyle Shanahan will always get the most out of whatever quarterback's leading the way. And I feel like, right now, yes, is Brock Purdy being maximized right now under this Kyle Shanahan system? Yes, 100%. I believe he's being maximized to his full capabilities. But at the same time, Brock Purdy is just never going to be able to escape this narrative that's on him right now. But everyone's saying that it's the roster that's around him. He's playing with the best constructed roster in football. He plays with Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, and then obviously his defense can clean up any mess that he makes. But so far this season, obviously let's go back to last season when he took over the job against that Miami Dolphins team, and let's talk about how he ended that season. Obviously, they continued to rip off their win streak. They end up going to the NFC Championship game with their eyes closed, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to finish out that game due to an elbow injury. And now we're in the offseason. He's competing with Trey Lance, a guy they traded 3 first-round picks for, and he ends up beating him out. Trey Lance wasn't even able to be the backup to Brock Purdy. He ended up being the 3rd string, which led to him being traded. Kyle Shanahan found his guy. He was backing his guy. He said Brock Purdy is going to be my guy for the season. Was never an issue. It was just always about his health, whether or not he was going to be able to come back for week 1 because of that elbow injury he suffered in the NFC Championship game. But now that we're in week 5 and week 6 of the NFL season, we've reached this point so far. The Niners starting off 5-0, not necessarily a surprise to anybody, but it's just the way that he's playing is what's very surprising for a lot of people. Like nobody expected this from an not undrafted, but the last pick of the NFL draft to come in and play like a top 5 quarterback this season. If anybody sat here and said that Brock Purdy is a top 5 quarterback right now in this NFL, we would literally have no argument against it. This is something that we've been going back and forth on Abdi for the last couple of days. He deserves a lot of credit just based on the fact that he's able to, because obviously this system is amazing, but this is the best the Niners offense has ever looked. You can't credit that to anybody. You can't credit that to, because Christian McCaffrey is there. Christian McCaffrey was there last year. You can't credit that to their skill player positions. Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle. Those guys have been there for many years now. But who is the guy that's getting these guys the ball? Who's the guy that's using the middle of the field, who's using his arm to get these playmakers the ball in the deep field positions, not only just being a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, who was a first read guy, dink and dunk 5-yard passes here and there, and letting the other guys use their yak, to move the chains down the field, move the ball down the field. Brock Purdy has been absolutely amazing, man. And if somebody sat here and said that he should be considered for the MVP as of right now, I wouldn't disagree whatsoever, but just based on the way that he's been playing through these first 5 weeks, it's not like what we've seen with Jimmy G last year and years before. He's not just game managing the game. This guy is taking over the game, and he's also creating opportunities for his playmakers to, put the ball in the end zone. And starting off the season, 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns with absolutely no turnovers. This is a guy that this is what Kyle Shanahan has always wanted, whether it's, Kirk Cousins or Tom Brady under center, where there's Jimmy Garoppolo, and now we have Brock Purdy. This is a guy that he's wanted, a guy that's an elite decision maker, a guy who's not going to make, who's not going to turn over the ball and put the ball in harm's way, who's always going to stay poised in the pocket. You can move him around the pocket left, right. If he needs to use his legs, so he uses his legs if he has to. But at the end of the day, he'll always get the job done. So, for right now, Brock Purdy, every single week, these guys can continue to win. These guys they're always going to be a great regular season team. We understand that from the jump. The Niners are always going to have the Niners have the best constructed roster. There's no doubt about that. These guys are always going to be 12-5, 13-4 with ease, with their eyes closed. But it's about what they do in the postseason. We'll get to that once we cross that bridge, once we get there. But for right now, for Brock Purdy, I think he deserves a lot of credit for what the Niners are able to do, because this is the best they've looked so far offensively. We've never seen a Niners offense look this fluid. There's absolutely no flaws in, this Niners offense right now. Obviously, even with a guy like Deebo Samuel, who's been banged up for a couple of weeks, even with a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who had to sit out a couple of weeks ago because of a shoulder injury, Brock Purdy has been able to just, you plug and play anybody at the wide receiver position. He's going to be able to find you. He's going to be able to get you the ball, and he's going to be able to put this team in scoring position. So I feel like right now, it's just unfair to a guy like Brock Purdy, a guy who's, on a 600K contract as the last pick of the NFL draft, not getting enough credit, the credit that he deserves, just based on the fact that everyone's going to sit here and say that, it's the Niners system, it's the Kyle Shanahan system. Obviously they don't need an elite quarterback. They have an elite roster. And anybody can do that. And of course, anybody can sit, any elite quarterback can go ahead and do what Brock Purdy is doing. Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, anybody. You could put anybody in that position. But I think what people fail to realize, and what people fail to understand, is this guy was the last pick of the NFL draft. Nobody expected him to come in and look like one of the best quarterbacks this season. So, majority of the credit does go to him. A lot of it does go to the defense. Him and Christian McCaffrey. I think Christian McCaffrey should be ahead of him when it comes to the MVP race, just based on the way that he's been playing so far this season. But I think Brock Purdy, for sure, has solidified himself as a top 5 MVP candidate as of right now, as we move into week 6 of the NFL season.
I'm just like I don't mind people when they say Brock Purdy's been playing as a top 5 quarterback. I guess, yeah, that's fine. Like, in terms of his play and the numbers back end and everything. My thing is that, like, when people evaluate Brock Purdy and they talk about, well, Snyder, yes, Brock Purdy's has been playing better, or has played better than Jimmy G, like, ever has, in terms of this Niners offense. But again, my entire point is that Brock Purdy's skill set and what he brings to the table is not something that is completely rare. It's not something that, like you mentioned, like any of these elite quarterbacks can play. Like, it's, to me, I don't even extend it just to elite quarterbacks. I think any of these top 10, top 12 quarterbacks, if you insert them in this 49ers offense, I think they can replicate exactly what Kyle Shanahan needs in this offense, because at the end of the day, there's things that are going to be true about this offense. They have elite separators that are going to get open. Brandon Ayuk is going to get open. Deebo Samuel is going to get open. Kittle's going to get open. They're going to have a dominant run game because of Christian McCaffrey and Trent Williams in the offensive line. And they have the Kyle Shanahan as a head coach. He's going to make the correct play calls almost every time. And at the end of the day, they're going to have a defense that cleans up everything. So, yes, does Brock Purdy deserve credit for what he's doing for this roster? Yes. But at the end of the day, I think quarterbacks like that, who are maximized in a system and, are reliant more on the system, I think the fine margins of how good they are start to show out in terms of the postseason in these bigger games where they need to show up. And we don't have enough evidence to say Brock Purdy is going to be this type of franchise quarterback for them. And I don't know if people are ready to even say that for him based off a 10-game sample size. I think last season he started about 5 games, I think, and then maybe including postseason 6. So I think when you evaluate Brock Purdy as a quarterback, I think he's been good. I think he does exactly what he needed, and I don't think people should fault him for that. He was the last pick in the draft. This guy has a great come-up story. But at the end of the day, I think when you evaluate him as a quarterback, I think you need to understand that this system does maximize him, and it does utilize the skill set that he has, which isn't completely rare in my opinion.
So you don't think Brock Purdy, as of right now, is a top 15 quarterback in this league? Forget that he's playing at a top 5 level. Overall, top 15.
Top 15, I think, yeah, he is. I mean, he's better than guys like Derek Carr. I think he's better than guys like Ryan Tannehill. I think, yeah, he would be in the top 15. Sure. I think that's fair. He is in top 15. I think, yeah. Top 15 is very fair.
I think that's understandable, but
I don't think he's better than like a Jared Goff. I don't believe he's better than a Jared Goff. I think Jared Goff is a better quarterback than him. But Brock Purdy does exactly what the system needs.
You don't think that he's playing outside? He's playing so well that it's not necessarily the system that he's in, but more so his quarterback, his talent, and his ability to play the quarterback position.
Not as much, because in this system, like I mentioned, I mean, the Niners, I think last year they led the league in separation in terms of their pass catchers. I think these guys, in terms of getting into that middle of the field and being what they need to be, Brock Purdy does 3 things amazingly well. He has anticipation, he throws with timing, and he throws with accuracy. Those are 3 things needed when you guys are going to get open. When there's going to be preordained reads, and I'm not saying everything is going to be preordained. I think, like, for example, the Kittle throw over the weekend against the Cowboys, that's not a preordained read. I think that's just him recognizing a guy is open, and I think that's a great quarterback play. But when I need a quarterback that's going to be consistently making those plays, I don't look towards a guy like Brock Purdy. I look towards more of these top 10 guys that are able to make plays like those. And I don't know. I don't have enough of me to say, well, Brock Purdy is going to be a guy that's going to consistently make that type of play. I don't believe in that. I'd have to see it to believe it, because I need consistency in terms of making those type of plays outside of the system. And I don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be that type of creator outside of the system, if that makes sense.
What does Brock Purdy have to do in your eyes, to be considered as the Niners franchise quarterback?
I think, for me, one, of course, obviously, I don't expect Brock Purdy to play at a top 3 quarterback level. I think that's very unfair to ask him of that. Especially in terms of his efficiency and it's crazy as his volume isn't even that crazy, but he's been just stupidly efficient. He's been protecting the football. I just think he has to play at a very solid level of where he's been at. Like, I think continue to play at a very, very high level. And at the same time, I think the postseason is where especially these bigger games. I like to look for like these bigger games, because they have a bunch of big games on their schedule. I think they play the Seahawks. They have some other game. They have a test against his Browns.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Let's stop calling this. Let's not call the Seahawks a big game.
It's a divisional game though. It's a divisional game.
We saw what he did to them last year, bro. Come on now.
But it's a divisional game.
Let's be real now.
And they're a better roster than they are now. We have
the number 1 Seahawks hitter and the number 1 Niner nut rider right there on the top left. You remember what
Brock Purdy did to you guys on Thursday night?
Vikings on the bottom, right? The beanie switches, it turns around to a Niner sign.
The Niners logo is on the back. The Niners logo is on the back. But you saw what Brock Purdy did to your Seahawks last year. Why? Like, and you saw him do what he did to your Seahawks. Like, what, 2 times? One of them was on Thursday night. You saw what he did to you guys in the playoff game.
I think they play like the Jaguars. They have a test against his Browns defense coming up. They have a bunch of like these bigger games where he's gonna get tested, and I need to see Brock Purdy show up in the second game, and then of course in the postseason. I think the postseason is good enough evaluator to see what Brock Purdy is like, because in the postseason it's not always going to be about your system. It's what plays you can make outside of the system. I think that's why the Patrick Mahomes thrives in the postseason. That's why the Joe Burrow thrives in the postseason. That's why Josh Allen has good numbers in the postseason, because these type of quarterbacks, when it comes to, and even Jalen Hurts, we all know Jalen Hurts had the system quarterback allegations last season. We were all well aware of that. And then when it got to the Super Bowl final, what did he show? He showed, I'm not a system quarterback. I can do this stuff outside of the system. And so I think Brock Purdy just really needs to, for me, just needs to be tested more. I think 10-game sample size, I don't know if I feel comfortable enough to have a 10-game sample size and say that's my franchise quarterback. I think a little bit more is needed.
I mean, he has played in the postseason before. I mean, he's got two games and a quarter.
What does his numbers look like?
Obviously, that Dallas game wasn't good, but
Yeah,
that game against the Seattle Seahawks wasn't too bad.
yeah. I think I just need to see more of a sample size of him getting tested against these bigger teams.
I don't think it's about the numbers. I feel like it's late game situations. See if he can come out of those situations. If it's close game situations and he comes through with the clutch, I feel like that's where he gets tested at. Other than that, he's shown everything that.
Like for me, it's when the system breaks down. What does Brock Purdy look like?
Yeah.
Like because he has games against the Bengals, he has games against the Jaguars, he has the Eagles game is literally one of the biggest games for them because that's like a rematch of that, and I know that they want that. You know, they have games against Lamar Jackson later on in the season, so stuff like that. Like I think those are critical games just to see where Brock Purdy's at.
I guess that's fair. That's fair to say. But aside from all that, we'll I know eventually we'll have to revisit this conversation. Once the Niners end up making the postseason, we'll have a much larger sample size to go ahead and to address a guy like Brock Purdy and assess him in that fashion. But let's go ahead and move on to the next topic of this episode tonight, and we have the Bill Belichick-led New England Patriots. The New England Patriots in the Bill Belichick era have suffered the two worst losses of Bill Belichick's tenure as a head coach. I believe they lost 0-34 against the New Orleans Saints, not being able to put up a touchdown, and then of course on the road against Dallas the week before 3-38. In both those games, Mac Jones did end up getting benched, and so. Is it time for Bill Belichick to just hang it up and retire? And do the New England Patriots go into the market looking for a new quarterback?
I don't know, man. Like this team, there's a lot just going on. Like their skill positions are terrible, and I think we highlighted that so much coming into the season. We talked that they had Juju Smith and Kendrick Bourne and a bunch of just guys, and this offensive line has been playing great. Even a guy like Ramondre Stevenson, who was a bright spot last season, he's been struggling in this offense. Like it's just been downright terrible for this team. And a lot of people would question about how the Patriots drafted post Tom Brady, like what moves were they making. The Mac Jones selection, I think it was fair enough, best quarterback available at the time, but he hasn't been exactly what they panned him out to be. I think since his rookie season, he has regressed, and a combination of that was their offensive coordinator last year and his play in of itself and the skill positions, and there's just a lot going wrong with this team offensively. And even I think it's gotten to a point where their owner Robert Kraft is apparently he's not happy with Bill Belichick at the moment. He's frustrated with him because this team, they post Tom Brady hasn't been looking good. And I get it; it's not easy to replace a guy like Tom Brady, but it just feels like it's been an offensive issue for these last 3-4 years since Tom Brady's been gone. They haven't been able to really help themselves out at wide receiver. They haven't been able to help themselves out. Offensive line has been up and down during this tenure. The play calling has been downright terrible. When they had, I think Matt Patricia was their offensive coordinator last year. They've had issues with this roster, and I think part of that you're muted. Part of that
was it 2 years ago, Matt Patricia, or did he come back after the Lions?
Because I think that was one of the reasons why I think Mac Jones struggled last year was because of the offensive coordinator. I want to say it was Matt Patricia last year. That because I believe Bill O'Brien is the offensive coordinator this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I forgot who it was last year, but he was beefing with the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. So they've had just a bunch of issues just going on, and Bill Belichick. I think maybe it could be time to call it quits just in terms of one, just resetting the identity of this team. But at the same time, I question the draft choices of this team. These last 3 years, Christian Gonzalez might be their best draft pick. They've drafted Jack Jones and Marcus Jones and all these other guys, but nothing has been pointed out to me that I feel like, wow, this team, they really have an identity. It feels like they're just going to be one of those perpetual 6-11 teams, and I think they're stuck in a loop right now as it is.
Man, the Patriots, man. Ever since Tom Brady left, that guy has left them in shambles. Like the offense there's nothing on the offense that appeases anybody. Like I don't think any of the offensive pieces start on any of the other NFL teams, from receiver to to offensive line, to tight end position, to quarterback position, especially Mac Jones. Even with the skill issues on the positions, I still think he's a horrible quarterback. I still think he can't read games. I feel his progressions are horrible. His arm power is like he really can't throw the ball deep. And I don't know. For me, he can't escape the pocket. He's not fast. There really isn't any intangibles for me to say Mac Jones deserves to be a starting quarterback in this NFL. And it goes with the horrible offensive line, a horrible receiving core. Just a lot of things going on with that team, and a lot has to do with Bill Belichick. Like ever since Tom Brady left, I honestly thought, hey, it's time for rebuild mode. Make a whole new team. Build on what we got left, and there's nothing. You didn't replace Edelman. You didn't replace Gronk. You didn't replace these key O linemen that were phenomenal during these Tom Brady stretches during the last couple of years of his season in his career. You didn't replace none of these guys. Your defense was okay for the first 1 to 2 years. You hit on some key picks and everything, but they're still struggling. And a lot, like I said, Robert Kraft has the right to be mad at Bill Belichick. I mean, you're this legendary coach, and you're having this stretch where it's 3 to 4 years where your team is horrible, and a lot of it there's nothing to show for it. And you're coming back into the season, it's the same cycle every single time. So what's going to change? I don't know what's going to change. Bill Belichick might have to retire. Who knows? They might have to clean house on everybody. Maybe, but there's a lot going on in New England, and they've been failing ever since Tom Brady walked out.
I mean, I just feel like when we start talking about the New England Patriots, number one, we do have to talk about Bill Belichick and his decision making, and that's just something that Julian Edelman even highlighted pretty recently on the Colin Cowherd show. That they went into the draft, they went looking for wide receiver weapons, and some of the guys that Bill Belichick signed off on just didn't necessarily pan out, to be the guys that they were supposed to be. And Julian Edelman, highlighted. He said something like, when you see a first round, player, you can see, why he went first round, in training camp, in practice when they go at it. And there's a lot of questionable guys. He didn't want to name drop anybody, but I think one guy on the top of our heads we could talk about is N'Keal Harry. That's one guy that didn't necessarily pan out for the New England Patriots. And so I just feel like, for Bill Belichick, obviously for many years when it was just him and Tom Brady, we talked about who is this system? Who is the system? Is it Tom Brady or is it Bill Belichick being the head coach? And I think for these last couple of years, since Tom Brady's removed himself from the New England Patriots, I feel like we've got a clearer understanding and a clearer picture of who was really running the show, who was really orchestrating the team, during their time together in New England. And so for Bill Belichick right now, to save his legacy, obviously he's one of the greatest head coaches of all time. I think it's just time for him to either continue being the head coach, but step down from general manager roles and general manager duties, or just step away from the team as a whole. That's something that the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft and him are going to have to sit down and talk about. And I don't feel like it's fair at all to Mac Jones. So for me, I just feel like I don't think they should go into the market looking for a quarterback, whether that's going into the free agency market or going into the draft looking for another quarterback. I think Mac Jones just hasn't really been put in the greatest situations, as a rookie, as not a rookie quarterback, but as a very young quarterback so far in the league, because he's playing with playmakers. Juju Smith-Schuster so far this year, I mean, I believe he has maybe less than 10, 11 catches on the season. And then, we have, Kendrick Bourne from the San Francisco 49ers, and they signed a couple of tight ends. And there's just not enough weapons for Mac Jones to really utilize his arm strength and his arm talent. And I know, obviously, his decision-making has been extremely poor, and his ball security has been very poor as well, which just led to these blowout losses for Bill Belichick. But I don't think benching him for a guy like Bailey Zappi is going to solve any issues. Like, it might look good for a couple of games when they play bad teams, but I don't think it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gun wound. Like it's not really going to do much. So for Mac Jones, I think this is a project that they signed up for. They used their top, they didn't have to use like a crazy top draft pick, but a first round pick on him. So I think they just got to wait a little bit of some time, to see how he pans out for maybe like at least one more year with some competent weapons. But for Bill Belichick, man, it's just one of two options. Either he steps away from the New England Patriots as a whole, or he steps down from general manager duties, but just based on the fact that his decision making, as a general manager hasn't been too good. And I feel like as of right now, he has way too much power than he has to. Because back when he had Tom Brady, he could have had all the power in the world, and they wouldn't have said a damn thing, just based on the fact that they were winning so much. When you have Tom Brady, it covers up a lot of your holes, and Tom Brady didn't necessarily need a lot of the greatest weapons, for him to do damage. You can bring guys like Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola, and you can still end up winning the Super Bowl. All you just need is a couple of weapons. He always had Gronk, and he always had Edelman, and that's all he really needed. So for the New England Patriots, don't go into the market for a quarterback. Give Mac Jones a little bit of some more time. Give him some better weapons. But for Bill Belichick, it's time. I personally think it's just best for the Patriots and for him to just part ways. Obviously it's not going to end on the greatest note. But when you look back on the history of the New England Patriots and what they've been able to do for 2 decades now, I mean, there's a lot of good things than bad, in my opinion. So, but with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to the Baltimore Ravens and what they did this past week, and let's go ahead and talk about that for a little bit. Coming into this past week, the Baltimore Ravens were playing a division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they did not have a drop. They're one of the very few teams, one of the 2 teams in the league. I think it was them and the San Francisco 49ers who didn't have where their receivers didn't have a single drop in a game. And the Ravens come into this game, and I believe they had about 7 to 9 drops from their skill position players. So, is this something that we should be concerned about moving forward? Moving forward for the Baltimore Ravens, because Lamar Jackson was the highest graded quarterback by Pro Football Focus.
I was just about to mention that. I think even with the interception, fumble, he was still the highest rated Pro Football Focus quarterback, and that just explains how much of a monster day he would have had if everybody had caught their passes. I think he would have had like maybe 348 and 2 touchdowns was measured, and that's like without any concerning for any sort of yards after the catch. And we know how guys like Zay Flowers can make moves out in the open field, and so it's an uncharacteristic game for guys like Mark Andrews had a couple of drops, Zay Flowers had a couple of drops, who's been very sure-handed as a rookie. Nelson Aguilar had a huge drop, going to the end zone, and Rashad Bateman, he had a drop as well. And so, I wouldn't say it's going to be a trend going forward, but it is something that these guys have to work on, because Isaiah Likely, even against the Colts, he had a huge drop, that potentially just flipped the game. And if the Ravens hadn't had these drop issues, they're probably sitting at 4-1 right now. This team, I think, they have the potential to be really, really good. And Lamar Jackson has been playing lights out. His completion percentage is the best it's ever been. His QBR, he's absolutely been balling out. The numbers may not, in terms of the passing touchdowns, may not show it, but he's been phenomenal to start the season. And so, these guys just have to be a little bit more sure-handed. But I don't view it as being a trend, because I can trust in guys like Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. I believe in guys like that. Rashad Bateman as well, when he's able to play and stay healthy. OBJ, it's time to be a family man. But other than that, everybody else on the team, they're good enough for it, man.
Man, 7 drops in that game, man. They said it could have been, 3 touchdowns. This is a division game. And it's the typical Lamar Jackson case where, he performs and his receivers are wide open and these guys are dropping balls. And there goes the media. Stephen A. Smith came out. It's Lamar Jackson's fault that they lost, and And it's like, did you watch the game, or did you just, you seen the scoreboard and you immediately made some type of reference off the scoreboard? People got to watch the games to see what happens. And I don't know, man. These receivers, it's a constant thing with them. It might happen today, it might happen tomorrow, and it might happen in the biggest playoff game for Lamar Jackson. And it did happen before, and it's happening again. So, these guys got to fix up. Bateman, Zay Flowers, OBJ, Mark Andrews, these guys all got to catch their balls, man. Lamar's putting him in a position where they can thrive and succeed in. He's having one of the best PFF grades as a quarterback in a week where his receivers dropped 7 balls, and the stats don't look that crazy for him, but the efficiency was there. So for me, these guys, they got to step up. They got to start performing. And I mean, if that happens later on in the season and they don't make the playoffs because of this, we're going to look back at it and be like, yeah, this is a big issue. This is a big problem. I hope people don't go back and be like, oh, this is Lamar Jackson's fault. This is the reason you don't pay running quarterbacks. It's the reason where you have to draft a quarterback that can throw the ball, All that is BS. All that is BS. So,
for the first time in a while, this is probably the one time where I can't come in here and just blame Lamar Jackson based on his play, because he honestly just got sold, man. And I feel like, Zay Flowers will be better. He's a rookie. First bad game of the season. He'll be able to shake this off. I think the one player that I'm probably most disappointed in is probably Mark Andrews. I feel like, being there for so long, having that strong connection with Lamar Jackson, I thought he could have played a lot better. And Lamar Jackson was getting him the ball in spots where normally Mark Andrews makes plays. So maybe we can just chalk it up to a bad day. A guy like Nelson Aguilar, I honestly don't know how he's still on the NFL roster at this point. He's had a history. He has a track record of, dropping passes, from great quarterbacks. And so it doesn't necessarily make any sense to me. And Bateman, that's a guy who I think the Ravens should probably have their most eyes on, just based on the fact that he wasn't able to play last season. They have a lot of high expectations for him coming into this season, to being a complimentary wide receiver in this wide receiver room. But for OBJ to come in, I think his time is up, man. He hasn't looked like the OBJ of old. The last time we saw OBJ was like 2 seasons ago, where he was always almost on his way to winning Super Bowl MVP in that first half, and he ended up tearing his ACL. He's just not. I don't think he'll be able to get that type of play back. But for Lamar Jackson, all the narratives that are surrounding him this past week, I think it's just a lot of lazy narratives, a lot of lazy agendas, a lot of people that aren't necessarily watching the games, and the people for the people that are saying these lazy narratives and these lazy agendas, I think they're probably watching that one clip where Lamar Jackson, was trying to escape the pocket and he ended up fumbling the ball. I think it was TJ Watt who got that strip fumble. Like, yes, that it is. Is it an issue, for Lamar Jackson, turning over the ball in the fourth quarter? But yes, but at the same time, it's not like he's, putting the ball in harm's way or anything like that. He's just, pocket is collapsing. He's trying to make a play out of nothing. And unfortunately, TJ Watt being, the great player that he is, was able to make a very, very big play. So, for the Ravens moving forward, though, this could be a concerning issue just based on the fact that, this receiving core needs to step up. This is obviously the best weapon group that, Lamar Jackson has had, during his time so far as the Baltimore Raven. And so for these guys to not step up in a year where Lamar Jackson was fighting to get a contract, I can only imagine what the agendas and what the narratives are going to be. Once the season ends and it doesn't end in a fashion that the Baltimore Ravens fans would hope. But I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. But let's go ahead and move on to these NFL Power Rankings top 10, man. We gotta create a top 10 list for the top 10 best teams so far through 5 weeks of the NFL season. We'll go ahead and start off at number 10.
Damn. Number 10?
It's tough. It's easy to go from one. It's easy to start from
That's
one.
what I'm saying. I would.
Yeah.
I was ready to kick it off with the Niners. Number 10.
It's easy. It's easy to start at 1, man. We got a lot of options at 1, but we got to think for who we got at 10, man.
This is a collective effort to build our
collective
top 10.
effort.
Are we all
Build our
agreeing?
top 10.
Are we all agreeing from 10 to 1? Basically, we all got to agree on one. We can't have 3 different answers.
We all got to agree on 1. We can't have different answers.
Alrighty, let me see this so I can get a visual of these teams.
I
need to get it.
We got a lot of it's a lot of 3 and 2 teams that really shouldn't really be in the conversation, but it's tough trying to assess this, man.
All right,
at 10, I think.
Let's make this easy. In 5 weeks from now, we're going to be able to redo this. Let's go ahead and move on from 1. Let's go ahead and 1 to 10. At number
start
1.
from 1. All right. At number 1, I think we're all in agreement as it stands, the 49ers.
We're going to put 49ers there. At number 2, we're going to put Philly there.
Yes, they're 5-0.
Okay. Now this is where things may get tricky at number 3. Number 3.
I think I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here at number 3, not the Chiefs. I'm gonna go with the Dolphins here. I think in terms of their offense and how they've been playing, I think the Dolphins have been playing better. I think the Chiefs' offense has been kind of like on and off for me a bit. In fact, I think I would put the Dolphins and the Lions ahead of the Chiefs as it stands now.
Okay, I mean, we're going Dolphins 3.
Yeah.
Right. 4, where are we going?
Are we going with the Chiefs or are we going with...
I think I'm gonna go with the Chiefs at 4.
I don't know. I feel like Detroit, like ever since that, even in that Seahawks game, their offense still played great. I think they've just been like overall just like consistent in terms of how they played. I think they've established themselves this season. All the young players have been playing great. Penei Sewell, Aiden Hutchinson, everybody. Jared Goff's been playing great. I think everybody's been contributing on that team. David Montgomery. I've just kind of liked what I've seen from them a little bit more in terms of their offense.
I'm thinking the same thing because I'm not liking what I'm seeing so far from Kansas City's offense. I think that, like I've said in the beginning of the season, it's just a little bit of a concern so far of how they've come out. Even though they have a 4-1 record, that's just really based on their defense being so far elite to start off the year, and Mahomes kind of just casually going through the motions, not necessarily being the Mahomes that we know. And so I'm pretty confident putting the Detroit Lions here at 4.
Okay, so Kansas City at 5.
We can. Are you going to the Bills?
I was gonna say Buffalo, but the thing is, the way Buffalo came out against Jacksonville and London,
I
don't
On,
know,
would.
man.
on top of the fact that Buffalo's injuries have just been they've been devastating Buffalo as of recently. And so how their offense came out was a bit flat. I think their defense tried their best, to hold that Jaguars offense, but the injuries are starting to pile up. The offense came out a bit stale, so they and on top of the fact that
The injuries are hitting them bad on the defensive side of the ball. They're losing a lot of key players.
They just lost Matt Milano,
Milano, which is
Trey
huge.
White against the Miami Dolphins, so their defense is taking a hit. But if we did this about a week ago when they were red hot,
when they cooked the Dolphins,
But who would you guys put over them? I mean, I have the Chiefs over them. That's it.
I think it's just as of right now, it's probably Kansas City.
I think Kansas City.
That rounds out what the top 5.
That's
I think
definitely
they deserve the 6th spot.
Yeah,
For me, the next 3 was going to be the Bills, the Seahawks, and the Chargers, and the Ravens were going to be in there as well. The next 4, that was going to be for me.
So at number 6, we're going Buffalo.
We're going Buffalo. I feel like that it was a slow week against the Jags. I think they still bounce back. They're going to kill the Giants. I mean, Giants are missing everybody this upcoming week, so it's going to be bad. But Bills at 6 for me.
Buffalo 6.
Baltimore 7.
What are we doing? Are we going Seattle at 7?
Seattle
or are we going Baltimore?
I think Seattle 7, Baltimore 8, Chargers 9, and then 10 are the Jags. I wouldn't even say the Jags.
I mean, the Jags' offense has kind of been trending upward. I mean, in terms of the entire team, has kind of been trending upwards as of recently.
The Jags are a lot closer to like.
Because the other teams I have in mind I see the Cowboys, I see the Browns, I see the Rams, I mean, what do you guys think about Tampa? I mean, they started off the season pretty well.
Yeah, they're 3-1, but like
their record doesn't necessarily stand out to me. The way they've been playing has been solid, but at the same time, you also got to take into account the competition. That they're playing. The one game where they played the second best team on our list,
really good. I think they're giving up like 17 a game.
They haven't really played much comp, but I can go Seattle 7. And I can go Baltimore 8. I think we can go Seattle 7, Baltimore 8.
I think that's fair enough.
And then we have 9 and 10.
I think
are we gonna put the Dallas Cowboys on our top 10 list so far?
For me, it was gonna be the Chargers and the Jaguars.
I was gonna put the Chargers at 9.
Chargers at 9.
And I think Jags round out at 10 then.
Oh, we haven't even mentioned Jacksonville. So
do the Chargers deserve it over the Saints?
I don't like that Saints offense.
I mean, the Saints just came off a 30-point. I mean,
30-point blowout win, shutout win
against the Patriots, though.
3 wins against the Tennessee Titans, the Carolina Panthers, and the New England Patriots. How
hasn't been necessarily impressive.
How impressive has that been?
No, I feel like their offense hasn't been clicking like that either. I feel like a couple of those games were close.
How do we feel about the Browns?
Nah.
I think when Deshaun Watson hurt, kind of hurt.
With Deshaun, we would have a better understanding and a better picture about the Browns if Deshaun.
Because their defense has been playing great.
But yeah, their offense picked it up against Tennessee, but we weren't able to see Deshaun Watson play against Baltimore at home. And so they're probably like in between like 11 through 15. But at number 10, yeah, I feel like we have to put either. I mean the Pittsburgh Steelers do sit here with a 3-2 record. Have they been playing better than Jacksonville?
Nah.
I think their offense is still underperformed a lot more than Jacksonville, especially.
Like I said, if those receivers ain't dropped none of them balls against the Ravens receivers, that didn't drop none of them Lamar Jackson balls, it would have been a whole different story. Like it would have been a whole different story.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
we can round it out with Jacksonville. Just looking at it, I think we can round it out with Jacksonville. There's a lot of teams that will probably make this in like 5 weeks' time. We're missing the Cincinnati Bengals in here. We're missing, obviously the Browns. We're missing. There's a team that we're missing the Dallas Cowboys. But
they gotta make their way back, man. You don't get kicked in the chest like that and deserve it.
They got the easiest schedule. They had like the first 4 games. If you look at that schedule, it's just pretty easy, bro. To
He
me,
got
it's
kicked in the
like,
chest, man.
you beat the Patriots, you beat the Jets, and you lose to the Cardinals. And who else did they beat?
Giants.
Giants, man. Get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. It was never. They were never.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to put on the. Yeah, can we go back to that next week? When we talk about how the Cowboys are not.
Dag.
Yeah, like we
It
talked about.
wasn't. They played the best team in all of football.
He had 3
He didn't-
turnovers.
he didn't have the greatest game. It wasn't good whatsoever. But the thing is, we definitely can revisit that conversation next week, just based on the fact that they have a very, very important game on the road on Monday night against Los Angeles Chargers. And so, this is gonna be like the game where I can actually decide whether or not if these guys are true contenders, even though they lost Trayvon Diggs and things of that nature. Because after this week they have a week 7 bye, and so by week 8, we'll know by end of next week we should know whether or not the Dallas Cowboys are true contenders, or they're just just a fringe wild card team. But we know we'll go ahead and round out our top 10 with the Jacksonville Jaguars sitting at 10. And with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to our week 7 pick and predictions before we close out this episode. And
I know I had a bad week, man.
I didn't check. I ain't gonna lie, bro.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and talk about the first matchup that's going to kick off week 6 of the NFL season. We have the Denver Broncos going on the road to play the Kansas City Chiefs on Thursday. I think as a collective, we can all say that the Kansas City Chiefs will win this game. It's just a matter of whether or not these guys are going to cover this 10.5 spread Vegas got them at. But we got another 6:30 game. The Baltimore Ravens are coming off a very disappointing loss against the Pittsburgh Steelers, are going to play the Tennessee Titans. I believe this game is being played in London. So who do we got?
I got the Baltimore Ravens.
I'm going to pick the Ravens here.
We're going to go Ravens. This one's an interesting matchup. We have the Washington Commanders on the road playing the Atlanta Falcons.
I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Falcons on this one.
Falcons. Now we have a very, very big matchup. We have the Seattle Seahawks coming off their bye. Big H's Seattle Seahawks going on the road to play the Cincinnati Bengals, who were able to find their footing last week. Jamar Chase, 7-11. Like he said, he's always open. Who we got?
I'm going to go with the Bengals on this one.
Seahawks!
I know deep down in your heart you don't believe you're going to go into Cincinnati and win.
Have you seen how they've been playing the last 5 weeks?
You saw what they did last week. They did last week.
But their O-line is as good as the Giants' O-line, and we're going to blitz them every single play. I promise you, Joe Burrow's legs, good luck to that knee, bro, or hamstring, whatever's wrong with it. We're blitzing every single down. Good luck. They ain't got no protection. I promise you, no protection.
You guys think you got an answer for Jamar Chase, especially the week he's coming off of?
Chase can eat. It doesn't matter. They're going to get cooked each side of the ball. It don't really matter. He can have 170 yards. He's the only one that's going to be eating.
All right.
Ain't nobody else touching the ball.
They might have T. Higgins back this week, so it might be
that. They've been playing like some piece of trash the last 5 weeks. Even last week, even with Chase killing, they're still a close game.
I'm going to go ahead and pick the Cincinnati Bengals in this one. I wouldn't get some last week, and it cost me. Now we have the San Francisco 49ers going on the road to play the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson might not play in this game, so let's go ahead and keep that in mind.
I'll go with the 49ers this one.
Even if Watson did play, I'm picking the Niners.
Niners. This one is easy. The 0-5 Carolina Panthers are going on the road to play the Miami Dolphins. I know we're probably going to pick the Dolphins in this one.
Dolphins.
Next, we have the Colts playing the Jaguars. This game is in Jacksonville.
No Richardson?
No Anthony Richardson. Gardner Minshew will be under center. Anthony Richardson has gone to the IR. The grade 3 AC joint sprain.
I'm going to go with the Jags on this one.
Who won their first matchup? Was it the Jaguars? It was week 1, right?
Did they?
I think Colts won that one. Was it the week Richardson had like 2 running touchdowns?
No, that was against the Texans.
That was the week where Trevor Lawrence told him after the game, like, yo, be careful of taking too many hits. I think Jags won that one.
Yeah, Jags won that one. I think they do the sweep. I think their best chance was winning at home, but the Colts always do play them hard in Jacksonville. But I'm going to pick the Jags in this one. Next, we have the Saints going on the road to play the Houston Texans.
Where's this at?
Houston.
I'm gonna go with the Saints in this one.
I'm gonna
go with the Saints in this one.
Let's go.
I'm going Houston. I think they bounced back after losing a very close one last week.
Okay.
The New England Patriots. Actually, do you have another 10 o'clock game? We do. My Minnesota Vikings are going on the road to play the Chicago Bears. No Justin Jefferson in this one.
I'm gonna go with the Vikings in this one.
I'm gonna give Phil's the benefit of doubt. I think him and DJ Moore build on what they did last week. I got the Bears.
I have to pick my Vikings in this one. This is a divisional game. Now we go ahead and move on to the 1 o'clock slate games. We have the New England Patriots going on the road to play the Las Vegas Raiders.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with the Raiders in this one.
I got Las Vegas.
Raiders. Next, we have the Cardinals going up against the Los Angeles Rams.
I'm gonna go with the Rams. I like what I saw from Cooper Kupp.
I'm rocking with the Rams. They kept it very close against the Eagles last week. Cooper's back, him and Puka.
Go ahead and give me the Rams in this one. Next, we have the Eagles going on the road to play the New York Jets.
Give me the Eagles.
I think this is going to be a close game too, but I got the Eagles.
Eagles. Next, we have the Detroit Lions going on the road to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with. This is a pretty good matchup, but I'm gonna go with the. What's Amon-Ra's status update? Is he playing?
Dan Campbell did say he's probably going to come back this week and play. Last week was a precautionary issue. They sat him in so he doesn't get a bigger injury down the line.
We're gonna see the full offense this week, huh?
I'm gonna go with the Detroit Lions.
We'll go with the Lions.
Gonna go ahead and go on the Lions. I don't know why this team's on Sunday Night Football, but unfortunately they are. We have the New York Giants going on the road to play the Buffalo Bills. We're picking Buffalo in this one. But this one is interesting, though. We have the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night, like I said, on the road playing the Los Angeles Chargers. After getting their chest kicked in, they have another primetime game.
That defense is going to struggle. I got the Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Cowboys in this one. I think they're forced to have a bounce-back game.
I'm going Dallas in this one, man. I have a strong feeling that, against a team that doesn't have a defense, this is probably their best opportunity to get guys like Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb involved. But it all depends on Dak Prescott, the guy that's leading the way for this team. But I'm gonna go ahead and round it out with the Cowboys. The two teams that are on bye this week, the Green Bay Packers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next, we'll go ahead and let me go ahead and read out these records so far from week 5 of the NFL season. I know I didn't have too good of a week. You finished with a record of 8-6. Big Ish led the way with a record of 10-4, and I also finished with the record of 8-6.
10-4?
Now next, yeah, you finished 10-4. You had a couple of sneaky wins this past week. So. But in terms of the total week by week, that I'm gonna have to recalculate the numbers. My math is just not mathing right now, so this thing is not adding up. But I can guarantee for Big H, your record is 50-30, and my record is 46-34 for Abdi. Right now, I have you down as 54-24, but that just doesn't look right. I think you have a little bit more wins because it doesn't equal the 80 total games so far being played. But, with that being said, though, any final words before we sign off here, fellas?
Big week, baby.
Bye week. Got to reset.
Big week, baby.
Looking forward to another weekend of football, man. Not going to look forward to seeing Justin Jefferson on the sidelines, but, it is what it is at this point. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Yes, me and now Lake, now that's overkill.